The Cathari battleship Varuan's claw drifted through the void, broken, bleeding, its engine sputtering embers into the black sea of stars. Inside, corridors burned with plasma fire, and alien crew crawled through smoke-filled decks, their mandibles clicking in panic. The war with the Dravari swarm had reached its breaking point, and the Dominion's proud fleets were being swallowed whole. Captain Shirath pressed a clawed hand against his chest wound, blood dripping into the grated floor. He staggered into the command chamber, eyes burning as the stars beyond the viewport flickered with explosions. Cathari cruisers reduced to molten fragments in seconds. The swarm never left survivors. Transmit, Shirath rasped, collapsing against the console. Send the call. Someone must come. The comms officer hesitated. Sir, that channel, no one listens there anymore. It leads into, do it, Shirath roared, mandibles clashing. Even the forgotten must hear us, even them. The officer obeyed. A shrill frequency burst forth from the dying ship, a beacon of desperation. A distress signal, coded in Dominion war script, flung itself into the void like a flare. It should have reached their allies. It should have died in silence. Instead, it raced across the stars, bouncing from one decaying relay to another, through ruins of abandoned outposts and husks of long-dead satellites. Past borders no Cathari ship dared to cross, past the line drawn in fear. The signal entered forbidden space, half a galaxy away. Beneath the frozen Siberian tundra, a radar station that had not stirred in over a century suddenly came alive. Towers of steel shuddered as ancient machinery roared awake, floodlights blinding against the snowstorm outside. In the underground command bunker, alarms blared. Technicians bolted from their bunks, stumbling into the control room as monitors flickered with green waves of static. At the center of the room, one red light pulsed, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Commander Alina Voronova, silver-haired and sharped, entered the chamber in silence. Her officers stood at attention, fear etched into their faces. What is it? She asked coldly. A young analyst swallowed hard. Signal received, Commander. Military grade. Not ours. Not human. The room grew colder. For generations, Earth had listened in silence, monitoring the galaxy that had cast it into exile. They were told no one would ever dare contact them again. Humanity was to be forgotten. Approached the console, her boots echoing against the steel floor. She stared at the message as it decoded on screen, symbols twisting into meaning. Her breath slowed. It was a call for help. The Dominion, the same empire that once conspired to crush Earth, that helped erase its name from the galactic map, was begging for salvation. Where did it come from? She asked. The analyst's voice trembled. Cathari Space Commander. But the transmission, it was routed through our forbidden sector. The signal found us. The silence that followed was suffocating. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Some paled, others clenched their fists. Humanity had rebuilt in the shadows, forged fleets in secret, prepared for the day the galaxy remembered them. But this was different. Voronova leaned over the console, her voice low. Dangerous. They forgot we could still hear, she said, but we never forgot how to answer. The technicians looked at her, waiting. She gave the order without hesitation. Wake the Admiralty. Tell them someone has knocked on our door. Outside, the Siberian storm howled, but the dish on the mountain turned slowly, its black surface gleaming with frost. The red light pulsed faster, as if eager, hungry. Humanity's silence was over. The wrong signal had been sent. The council chamber beneath Geneva had no windows. It was a bunker carved into the earth, older than any of the men and women seated around its obsidian table. The walls were layered in steel, shielding against radiation, sensors, even orbital scans. Here, secrets were buried on sometimes, resurrected. The signal pulsed across the table's holomap, a crimson heartbeat against a web of star charts unseen for centuries. The atmosphere was suffocating, thick with silence as every eye fixed on the alien glyphs that flickered across the hologram. Admiral Marcus Reeve, scar running from temple to jaw, leaned forward. "Translate again." A technician obeyed, her fingers trembling as she keyed the commands. The glyphs rippled, then hardened into words Dominion standard, stripped of context, stripped of dignity. "Help us, immediate threat, coordinates attached." For a moment, no one moved. Then the chamber erupted into voices. "This has to be a trick. The Kethari wouldn't. They know where we are now." They swore never to send. The noise rose like a storm until a single voice cut through. Silence. All eyes turned to Chancellor Evelyn Sato, the oldest person in the room, her hair white, her eyes sharp. She had lived long enough to remember the silent culling the day the galaxy closed its borders and pretended Earth no longer existed. Her words were steady, but beneath them lay something darker. The Kethari Dominion was among those who feared us. When Earth's fleets grew too fast, when our soldiers proved too effective, they helped erase us from the galactic map. They thought to contain us, to starve us, to bury us. A hush fell. The hologram above the table shifted, replaying archived. Records images pulled from vaults never meant to see daylight. Cities burning under alien fire. Earth's skies split with orbital bombardment. Fleets of Dominion warships cutting through human colonies. Generals stared grimly as their history unfolded in light. Soldiers who had never spoken of those days clenched their fists in silence. Admiral Reeve's jaw tightened. "And now, they call for help." Chancellor Sato nodded. "They've made a fatal error. They assumed the past stays buried. They assumed we forgot." The chamber darkened. New visuals filled the air schematics of human warships, sleek, angular, weapons of silence and precision. The Ghost Fleet. The projects Earth had built in exile, waiting, sharpening, for decades. These ships had remained hidden beneath oceans, in hollowed asteroids, cloaked in the dark side of the moon, humanity's. Silence had been deliberate, preparation disguised as weakness. Now the signal had reached them. The question was no longer if they could act. The question was if they should. General Okoi leaned forward, her voice low. "If we answer this call, the galaxy will know we live. There will be no going back." A murmur ran around the table. Some officers looked hungry, eager to unleash the fleets they had trained in secret. Others looked fearful, aware of the storm such an action would bring. Chancellor Sato rose slowly, hands clasped behind her back. "We were silenced once. We survived. Now the galaxy bleeds, and the Dominion, our betrayer, calls to us like a drowning man calls to the one he once tried to kill. Shall we let them sink? Or shall we remind them who they tried to bury?" The question hung like a blade in the air. No one spoke. No one breathed. The red light on the holomap pulsed faster, echoing like a heartbeat, like a drumbeat of war. Humanity's exile was ending. The Pacific was calm that night. A glassy black sheet stretched to the horizon, broken only by the slow churn of waves and the faint shimmer of stars above. To anyone watching from the shore, it was a night like any other, silent, serene, but far beneath the surface, the ocean was not still. A low vibration rolled through the depths, rattling schools of fish and sending whales fleeing in panic. Hidden doors, massive steel petals, the size of city blocks, began to grind open in the seafloor. Bubbles rose in torrents as ancient locks disengaged, hissing like a beast taking its first breath in centuries. And from the abyss, something vast stirred. The first of the ships rose in silence, a jagged silhouette that swallowed starlight. Its hull was darker than the ocean itself, designed not to reflect, but to drink the light around it. To the naked eye, it was not a ship at all, but a void given shape. One by one, more shapes emerged, sleek, angular, predatory. Some rose from deep-sea vaults, others from hidden dry docks, carved into volcanic islands, and still more broke free. From the ice fields of Antarctica, their launch bays masked as shifting glaciers. Together, they formed a fleet that was not supposed to exist. The Ghost Fleet, humanity's forbidden answer to exile. In orbit above Earth, cloaked stations flickered, awake, receiving their commands. Engines hummed with power, though no flames were visibly. Chip moved with drives designed to mimic the silence of the void. On radar, they were less than shadows. 2 alien sensors, they were nothing at all. Inside the lead vessel, the UN Revenant, Captain Jace Harlan stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. His crew moved with an eerie calm, no chatter, no wasted motion. They had trained for this day their entire lives. On the main screen, the signal pulsed a set of coordinates at the edge of Dominion space, where the Dravari swarm was carving through fleets like carrion. Course plotted, his helmsman reported, voice steady but low. Ghost protocol engaged. They won't see us coming. Harlan's eyes narrowed. Good. Let them think humanity sleeps a while longer. We'll wake when it serves us. The fleet shifted, aligning silently. Then, with a flicker of distortion, the ships vanished, slipping into dark space transit at the coordinates. Chaos reigned. Cathari warships burned as the Dravari closed in, their insectoid vessels swarming like a tide of locusts. Carapace armored frigates latched onto Dominion cruisers, ripping them apart with plasma drills. Distress calls shrieked across the comms, filled with panic and static. And then, the void rippled. The Ghost Fleet emerged. No fanfare, no announcement. Just shadows sliding into reality. Engines cold, weapons hot. The Dominion Admiral froze on his bridge, mandibles quivering. By the stars, he whispered. It can't be. They were supposed to be gone. Across the swarm's channels, confusion spread. New contacts appeared on their sensors, brief flickers, before vanishing again, as though the void itself had turned hostile. Ships exploded with surgical precision, gutted by railgun slugs traveling faster than sound could dream. Drone clouds, black as oil, poured from human bays and carved through the swarm in seamless, coordinated strikes. In less than a minute, the tide of battle shifted. The galaxy had spoken of humanity as ghosts. Rumors, half-whispered legends of soldiers too ruthless, too clever, too dangerous to leave alive. Tonight, the legends had taken form, and they were armed. The Cathari Admiral's chamber reeked of smoke and fear. Sparks rained from overhead conduits, and the once proud banners of the Dominion hung in tatters along the walls. The battle outside was lost. Dominion fleets scattered like frightened birds, Dravari hulks still prowling the edge of the system. And yet the Cathari gathered, huddled around a flickering hollow projector, waiting for the arrival of something far more terrifying than the swarm. A ripple shimmered through the air, the holoprojector flickered. A figure appeared, tall, human. The Admiral's mandibles clicked nervously as the hologram sharpened into a man clad in black dress uniform, his face obscured in shadow. Behind him, indistinct silhouettes stood like statues. Other officers, watching, in silence. Their eyes glowed faintly red in the projection. Like predators studying prey. Cathari Dominion, the human's voice cut like a blade. Deep and cold. You called for aid. The Dominion Admiral, scarred and trembling, fell to one knee. The other Cathari officers followed, bowing their heads, mandibles quivering. Pride meant nothing now. Survival was all that remained. Yes, the Admiral rasped, his voice breaking. We beg for your assistance. The swarm is endless. Our fleets are ashes. Without you, we will fall. The human hologram did not move. His silence stretched, long enough that the Cathari dared to raise their eyes. The human's expression remained unreadable when he finally spoke. The words froze every breath in the chamber. When Earth burned, the human asked softly, "Did you kneel for us?" The Admiral flinched as though struck. Memories surged centuries old, but vivid. He remembered watching transmissions of Earth's cities consumed in fire, its colonies falling silent, one by one, Dominion warships aiding in the purge. Humanity's cries for mercy had been ignored. Deliberately, we were afraid. The Cathari stammered. You grew too strong, too fast. You threatened the balance. The human tilted his head. So you buried us? You erased our name from your maps? You exiled us into silence. Tell me, Admiral, you fear us less now. No one dared answer. The Dominion Admiral's chest heaved, mandibles trembling. Finally, with every ounce of dignity stripped away, he lowered his head to the floor. We were wrong. Help us, whatever the cost. Humanity is our only salvation. The human stepped closer, his holographic boots echoing against the chamber floor, though he was not truly there. His voice dropped, a whisper colder than the void. You betrayed us once. You will never be trusted again. But perhaps you will. Be useful. The Cathari dared to lift their heads, confusion flickering in their multifaceted eyes. Useful? The Admiral asked. The human's faint smile held no warmth. Slaves can be useful. Pawns can be useful. Examples can be very useful. The Dominion officers exchanged fearful glances, mandibles clicking in panic. Yet none protested. The alternative was extinction. The human turned his gaze, eyes hard as steel. You will kneel not as allies, but as subjects. Your fleets will answer to ours. Your secrets will be ours. Your pride is already gone only. Obedience remains. The Cathari Admiral bowed his head lower, claws scraping the floor. Yes, whatever you demand, we kneel. The hologram flickered, the human's image fading into static. His final words echoed in the chamber like a curse. Remember this moment, the day the mighty Dominion begged for the mercy of those they once condemned, the day humanity listened and did not forgive. The projection died. The chamber plunged into silence. No one dared move. Outside, the war raged on, but within these walls a truth settled heavy as stone. The Dominion had survived, the swarm, but in doing so, it had traded its soul. The stars above the battlefield were gone, not from distance, not from time, but from sheer weight of numbers. The Dravari swarm had blotted them out. In every direction, their ships moved like an endless tide, chittering signals filling the comes in a maddening static chorus. They didn't form neat lines of battle. They came like insects poured from a hive, filling every gap, every shadow, until escape itself seemed impossible. The shattered Cathari remnants huddled behind their burning carriers, watching in despair. They knew what came next. The swarm did, not take prisoners. And then silence. A ripple passed across the void, invisible, but undeniable. Something massive had arrived. The ghost fleet stepped from dark space, engines whispering against the stars. Black holes shimmered into being where nothing had been seconds before. Their silhouettes jagged, predatory, hungry. At the heart of the formation stood the UN's Revenant, its guns already awake. On its bridge, Captain Harlan stood motionless, eyes fixed on the maelstrom of enemy ships. His crew did not fidget, did not fear. They were children of exile, trained from birth for this single truth. When humanity returned, it would not return quietly. Target Cluster Gamma 7, Harlan said. The words were calm. The effect was not. Across the Revenant's flanks, railgun barrels extended, locking in perfect synchronization. Coils hummed with power, building magnetic storms along their lengths. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, in the next, the void itself cracked. The first salvo tore across the swarm. Kinetic slugs the size of buses screamed through the darkness, at a fraction of light speed. Impact was instantaneous. The swarm cluster did not explode, it ceased to exist. Ships shredded into fragments too small to burn. The Cathari officers aboard their crippled, Flagship watched in stunned silence. They erased them, one whispered, mandibles trembling. But the humans weren't finished. Deploy the veil, Harlan commanded. From the fleet's underbellies, drone clouds spilled outward, tens of thousands of black specks swirling like smoke. Each drone bore claws of tungsten and plasma cutters sharp enough to gut ships from within. They darted into the swarm like knives into flesh. Alien vessels convulsed, ruptured, split apart. The Dravari roared in fury, shifting their tide toward the human fleet. Millions of them. An ocean against shadows. The shadows did not flinch. Missile silos opened. Swarms of projectiles streaked into the dark, each one splitting mid-flight into dozens more. Detonations rippled through the void, nuclear suns blooming in miniature, so bright they painted the swarm in ghostly silhouette. For the first time, the Dravari faltered. Their formations, once endless, fractured in panic, dot on every Dominion ship. Still standing, officers stared in awe and dread. They had mocked humanity once. They had buried them in silence. But here, in the span of minutes, humans fought with a precision and ferocity that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. The swarm had come, expecting prey. Instead, they had found predators. Captain Harlan folded his hands behind his back, watching the chaos with cold eyes. "Let the galaxy watch," he murmured. "Let them remember why they feared us." And beyond the battlefield, watchers did see. Long-range Dominion probes, pirate relays, even neutral stations carried the images. Earth's ghosts fighting with fire and silence, turning an unstoppable tide into drifting wreckage. The galaxy's whispers would begin tonight, and they would spread like wildfire. The War Council chamber of Veros Prime had once been a jewel of the Dominion. Its walls were paneled with crystal, its vaulted ceilings painted in gold leaf, and its banners stretched high in arrogant pride. Now those banners hung torn and scorched. The walls cracked from orbital strikes. The floor littered with ashdot. The Dominion's leaders gathered around a long obsidian table, trembling mandibles clicking in panic. They had summoned their would-be saviors to negotiate. But when the humans arrived, the chamber no longer felt like a place of power. It felt like a courtroom. A ripple of distortion shimmered at the far end of the table. Then, without sound, they appeared. 3 humans materialized as shimmering holograms, each draped in the dark uniforms of Earth's unified command. Their faces were calm, unreadable, lit only by the faint glow of tactical readouts floating around them. Behind the holograms stood armored Marines, motionless, faceless, red optics glowing like the eyes of executioners. The Dominion delegation bowed their heads low. The silence was suffocating at last. One of the humans spoke, Admiral Reeves. Voice was steady, cold, and utterly without mercy. "You called for us," we answered. "But make no mistake, we are not your allies. You burned that bridge centuries ago." The Cathari ambassador, his claws trembling, spread his hands in a desperate plea. "We acknowledge our errors of the past. Humanity was exiled, unjustly, but the swarm threatens all." "Surely you see the necessity of," the Admiral cut him off. "Necessity is the language of the desperate. You want survival? You want us to bleed in your stead. That is not alliance, that is ransom. So we will name our price." The Dominion delegates stiffened. Slowly, the holographic Admiral extended his hand. A datapad appeared on the table before them, shimmering in hard light. Lines of text glowed, in crimson. "The galactic map," Reeve said. "Every hidden relay, every erased border, every erased record of Earth's colonies, fleets, and history. Restored to us, unaltered." Gasps rippled through the chamber. To give the map was to yield the galaxy's greatest secret, to acknowledge Earth's sovereignty once more, and more. Reeve continued, voice growing colder. "Your fleets will not command us. They will serve under us. Your worlds will grant us resupply, fuel, resources. In every treaty, In every council, Earth's voice will carry weight again. You will kneel not because we demand it, but because you need it. The Cathari ambassador lowered his head, mandibles trembling. And if we refuse? The admiral leaned closer, his holographic eyes like steel. Then the swarm will devour you. And when it is finished, we will pick apart what's left. Either way, Dominion, your time of ruling is over. You are a pawn now. Choose how useful you wish to be. Silence. The delegates dared not breathe. They knew they had no choice. At last, the ambassador touched the datapad. His claw trembled as he pressed the seal of the Dominion into the glowing red text. Admiral Reeve nodded once. No smile, no relief, only cold acknowledgement. Then, it is done. You serve humanity now. Remember this bargain, and remember it is not forgiveness. It is penance. The holograms flickered and vanished. The Marines faded with them, their glowing eyes extinguished. The chamber remained heavy with dread. For the Dominion, survival had been purchased, but survival had cost them everything. At the edge of the collapsed star, known as Black Horizon, the void was broken. Gravity storms raged like invisible tempests, dragging light itself into twisted arcs. Time stuttered here, pulses of radiation flashing across the dark like the heartbeat of something ancient. For centuries, no fleet dared come near. It was a graveyard, a place where lost ships drifted, crushed and bent into impossible shapes by the pull of the dead star. But tonight, it was no graveyard. Tonight, it was a battlefield. The Dravari swarm had gathered in numbers not seen in living memory. Millions of ships, living vessels of bone and chitin, stretching from horizon to horizon, their spines glowing with plasma fire. They churned in restless hunger, their shrieks echoing across the Cumnet, like a hive chanting one word: consume. Behind them, the broken remains of Dominion fleets clung to survival. They waited, trembling, for the ghosts of Earth to appear. They did not wait long. The void shimmered, and the ghost fleet arrived. They did not come in scattered formations this time. They came as a wall, a curtain of shadows spread wide across the horizon. At their center loomed Titan's human dreadnoughts, hulls blacker than the void, bristling with weapons unseen for centuries. Their drives burned faintly blue, like dying embers, yet each movement was precise, deliberate, and unstoppable. On the bridge of the Uns Revenant, Captain Harlan stood silent as tactical Hallis painted the swarm across his vision. Enemy markers filled the sky like a disease, a crimson infection spreading without end. His crew waited for his word. Begin Operation Iron Veil. The command spread like wildfire across the Ghost Fleet. Hidden compartments opened. From them, thousands of pods dropped into the void, small and insignificant. The swarm laughed in their clicking tongues, such tiny weapons, such pitiful effort, until the pods unfolded. Each one bloomed into a gravity well mine. Tiny singularities chained together by invisible threads. They sank into the gravity storms of the dead star, bending its chaos into a weapon. The battlefield itself shifted. The Dravari surged forward, hungry to crush their prey, only to find the void itself betraying them. Entire clusters of swarm ships were dragged sideways into invisible traps, colliding, tearing themselves apart under the weight of crushing gravity. And then the guns spoke. Rail slugs tore through the swarm, each one punching holes through dozens of ships in a single line. Missile clouds blossomed into miniature suns, lighting the broken horizon. Drone swarms moved like liquid shadow, weaving between enemy ships, cutting them apart from within. The swarm answered in fury. Waves of plasma and bioacid scoured the void, slamming into human shields. Dozens of Ghost Fleet ships vanished in fire. But for every vessel lost, 3 more slid silently into their place, weapons already burning. It was not a battle. It was a harvest. On Dominion ships, officers watched in awe as the impossible unfolded. They saw the swarm falter, They saw their nightmares bleed, and they whispered the same words, over and over, in disbelief. Humans. They are predators. They are predators. Hours stretched like eternity. Then, at last, the swarm broke. Its queens screamed as their fleets shattered, pulled into the black maw of the dead star, or torn apart by humanity's fire. The survivors, scattered into the dark, fleeing for the first time in memory. Humanity had not just won, it had set the void on fire. On the Revenant's bridge, Captain Harlan watched the wreckage drift. His face was cold, unreadable. "Transmit the footage," he ordered. "Every channel, every relay. Let them see." Across the galaxy, screens lit with the same vision, the swarm burning, humanity standing victorious against the impossible. The galaxy did not sleep after Black Horizon. Across every relay, every station, every hidden listening post, the same footage played on repeat, the swarm breaking, their endless tide collapsing, and Earth's ghost fleet standing unbroken against it. Worlds that had mocked humanity whispered in fear. Worlds that had erased their names spoke it again in hushed awe. But Earth was not finished. On the bridge of the Un's Revenant, silence held. The battle was over, yet every crew member stood at attention, waiting. Captain Harlan paced slowly to the center console, where a small device pulsed faint blue. The Admiral's voice echoed across the fleet-wide comms. "For centuries, they silenced us. They erased us. They left us in exile while their empires rose and fell. But we endured. We sharpened ourselves in the dark, and now the device flared. We will speak again." Harlan pressed the command. Across the galaxy, a signal burst into every frequency at once. It was not Dominion code. It was not pirate chatter. It was not swarm shriek. It was older, simpler humanity's first signal. The same binary pulse once sent into the void before the stars had even known Earth's name. A sequence of primes. A child's riddle to the cosmos, and layered beneath it, a message in every galactic tongue. "This is Earth. We were never gone. The silence is broken." The signal washed over 1,000 worlds. On Cathari Prime, citizens fell to their knees before holoscreens, whispering the name of the species they once betrayed. On Veros Prime, Dominion leaders sat frozen in their chambers, knowing their age of supremacy was ended. On distant neutral colonies, traitors, pirates, and wanderers stared wide out at the message, knowing a new power had returned to the board. But the signal was not merely words, it carried images. The wreckage of the swarm scattered across Black Horizon. Human fleets, silent and black, standing triumphant. Drones harvesting enemy corpses from the void like carrion birds. It carried sound, the last screams of the Dravari queens, fading into silence. It carried a truth. Humanity was no longer prey, and the Dominion Council, panic bloomed. "They will rule us," one minister hissed. "They will enslave us." Another shook her head. "No, worse. They will judge us, and they will not forget." Back aboard the Revenant, Captain Harlan stood, with his hands folded behind his back, watching the stars. His officers waited, expecting orders of conquest, of vengeance. But instead, his voice came low, measured, and filled with iron. "Let them fear us," he said. "Fear will keep them honest, but let them also remember this. Humanity does not seek their thrones. We seek the horizon. The galaxy is not enough, never was." His crew nodded in silence. For them, victory was not the end. It was the beginning. The signal pulsed again, faster now, spreading deeper into dark space, carried by relays, by whispers, by echoes, past Dominion space, past neutral stations, past even the reach of known stars. Somewhere in the far unknown, something stirred, something ancient, listening. Humanity had spoken, and the void had heard.